every answer, every night.
If they think that I've tried to settle scores, well, they ain't seen anything yet.
There's only one place. This is Sky News Business, Australia's business channel.
Hello, I'm Carson Scott and a warm welcome to Your Career. Coming up on the show, networking is easier said than done. We're going to find out just how to build a strong network and, crucially, maintain it. Plus, Australia's renovation queen, Shivani Gopal, joining me to share her career journey. First off, though, of course, a key for the week, the parliamentary inquiry into the big four banks, CEOs of each sailing through the questions relatively unscathed. Well, the grilling around recent scandals stealing the spotlight, there were questions raised on the unconscious bias in the sector that discriminates against women. Well, our next guests agree, Dr. Louise Mahler, saying it is tough for women in the world of finance, despite comprising about 40% of managerial positions. It doesn't, though, stop in the banking sector, with a report finding while women ask for pay rises as often as men, they're actually receiving them less. For more on that report and a deeper look into the finance sector's gender imbalance, I'm joined by Shivani Gopal, entrepreneur and founder of The Remarkable Women, and from our Melbourne studio, Dr. Louise Mahler. So welcome to you both. Let's start off, in essence, with this understanding, if we can, Shivani, about just is behind the pay rise conundrum. I mean, you know, often you've got to go back in time. It's a very 19th century construct, isn't it?
Indeed.
Of the breadwinner still, by default, being a male bastion as an excuse for this imbalance.
Oh, absolutely. And you've absolutely named it on its head. Australia has a male breadwinner bias that is enshrined in our society. And the recent study that was done by the University of Wisconsin actually proves that women pay rises just as much as men, but don't get them. Why? Because there are confirmation biases at play. There are male breadwinner biases that pay that mean that employers feel as though, well, hey, you're a man and I think that you've got to provide for your family, and as a result I think I'm going to pay you a little bit more, and it's an innate assumption. No one will ever admit it, but it is the case.
You said confirmation biases. Just explain that, break that down. What are we talking about there?
Absolutely.
In the industry, in the lingo.
A confirmation bias essentially means that people will promote people who are like them. They'll befriend people who are like them. They'll give pay rises to people who are like them. In fact, our human brain is wired to seek things that confirm our already confirmed values on the world. And so what that means is that because there are simply more men in leadership, these men are then promoting more men and giving more pay rises to men as a result. And that is confirmation bias at its play in a perpetual cycle.
Well, let's take that into the boardroom context as well. Louise, coming into this discussion from Melbourne, the idea of, you know, that being the male bastion still, the idea of even interrupting the flow of conversation with an alternate female perspective, what would you say strategically is at the heart of this now, to actually get something that's more than seen as, you know, just a cursory nod in that direction?
Well, I think, you know, times have changed. I think that there was when we were asking women to pander to what was the perception of leadership, the low, slow, loud, the looking strong, and no longer is that the case. We have to change what leadership means, and women have to bring the best of themselves to the engagement. You know, the issue is we do look different, we do sound different. Our voices are an octave higher than men's. What do you do about that? Well, you bring who you are the best way that you can to the engagement. We need to re-establish leadership norms.
We saw that in the banking inquiry this week, at least, and in fairness, we had a former stalwart of that very same said sector, Jackie Banks, no pun intended. I mean, interesting. She happened to have that name as a marker, but she's been company secretary for the likes of GlaxoSmithKline Australia, and so it goes. Can we just talk body language, even in that environment, just as an understanding whether there's been some progress or where things are at in terms of the questions and the answers? Back on you, Louise. Just you were making some analysis on this throughout the 4 days of evidence. What were you observing primarily?
Well, I was observing from the men, you know, I think at that level as CEO of a bank, your job, you know, what your money is to actually give the right messages across to the people who are listening, or confidence, and that if you have techniques like nodding backwards, closing your mouth, fiddling with your glasses, fiddling with your hands, no longer is that suitable. They have to have very clear messages about what they're getting across and knowing how to do that. And it's really hard for the women when they're asking the questions too, not to revert to aggression. And what is aggression? Aggression is when you use the upper body, when you start to twitch like a fighter, point, tight lips, you know, to actually maintain your power, know where power is, know how to congruently gesture. You know, it was a fascinating scenario where we saw all of that at play and exactly how well they did.
Yeah, well, I want to dig a little deeper in just a moment. Shivani, back on you, just in that context where it's underscored who's really first among equals there, and you go into that environment seeking as a woman seeking to sort of prove your credentials,
yes,
shoot home a point. Time and again, when you're giving your talks and your collective thoughts on this,
yes,
what do you say as a group is working inside those environments for women? What's the breakthrough that they're now establishing?
The breakthrough that's establishing is self-awareness and education in workplaces. Often what workplaces are saying is that there's an assumption that women actually feel as though this is an equal workplace. When surveys are conducted, it then challenges those assumptions and then says, well, hang on, we thought we had a very equal workplace. We thought that women had every opportunity to progress, but women are saying we don't. And so that creates awareness, and then that allows the ability to then challenge some of those norms that are occurring. What also changes is mentorship. When you provide mentorship, you give women the opportunity to practice. And we all know, Carson, that practice makes perfect. And so that will make women more enabled to say, well, I've got the leadership skills, I've got the know-how, I have the confidence to get out there and blast down these doors and ask for the pay rises that I deserve. And if I don't get them, I'll go elsewhere.
And gender-wise, it's not necessarily sort of a female-only path that they get that mentorship from, is it? I mean, David Gonski, notably,
yes,
with a coterie of up-and-coming and established female leaders in their own right. So, what does it come down to? The mentorship breakthrough is what? What are you getting back from that mentor, primarily? What is it you're going there for criticism? For what?
You're not going there for criticism. In fact, you're going there to bring out what your strengths truly are. And you're getting the capability of understanding how to best use that to your advantage. A mentor is very different to a coach, because a mentor has a very personal relationship and actually says, well, I've been through that problem before as well, and here's how I would do it. It's getting you insider knowledge in that sense, and that gives that woman an added advantage to again, practice to be the best version of herself.
Well, yeah, please, come on. Yeah.
To answer your question, Ollie, it doesn't necessarily have to be a male or female mentor. It could be any. However, seeing is believing, and it is beneficial to have a stronghold of supply of female mentors out there saying, hey, I too have cracked glass ceilings at every level. Here's how I did it, and yes, you can do it too.
Louise, back on applying all of that into we saw this week. I mean, okay, it was a male-centric display of bravura and machoism, but at its heart there was also that female interaction with some of those panelists on the economics committee themselves, gender-wise. So just when you got those responses and what you were picking up on, what were you saying was the real heart of this week? What was it about change in body language terms?
Well, I think that the people who were questioning were actually, they were able to show aggression. It was not their job to be neutral in any way. It was the job of the people who were being asked the questions to actually hold state, to hold their state under fire and not collapse and give away indications that they were some way guilty in any way. And they did quite well.
Does this sort of as much apply in the boardroom, that strategy? It's sort of a dance, isn't it, between the two sides? Will you dance, and then do you actually on the dance floor itself pass muster, or do you fall in a heap and stamp on the other partner's toes in the process?
we all have a propensity to either fight or flight, and neither of those wins. So, you know, we have to know what the game is that gets us somewhere. And, you know, going back to the mentoring, I think that what a mentor does is helps put the world into perspective. Because so often when we get attacked in a boardroom, we think it's personal and we think it's about us, and it's not. This is a culture within many boardrooms where people are attacked to test their strength. And it's about saying, this isn't about me and it's not about whether I'm useless. It's actually, this is a game, these are strategies that I need to do. And I call it holding state. It's actually about able to hold you neutral, not sending negative messages, you know, when pushed up against the wall. It's quite an art.
Well, it's interesting because you pull out an example, this, you know, from Louise's perch saying, look, if you're Indian with a lisp, you're in deep proverbial, potentially even in a boardroom situation. Just explain the dynamics of gender, of race rather, as well as a complicating factor, or are we multicultural? Have we arrived even at that embrace, or are we still kind of in a pretense over it?
There is certainly a pretense over it. In fact, I think when we say, well, we've got equality in the workplace, we know that we don't. And when we say we have diversity of equality in the workplace, we absolutely don't. Wow. As a Fijian Indian woman who is in the finance sector, I very rarely see female leaders who are also of Indian descent, and even more so of different ethnicities. That is even more so a minority that also need to tackle. And it is just a fact that people from different ethnic backgrounds will face subtle racism on a daily basis. That is a fact that we simply don't acknowledge enough, and when we don't, we accept it to be a norm. And those things need to change.
Look, a lot more we could sort of unpack on this. It's trite to kind of just give it lip service, but I want to thank you for your insights, notwithstanding in this opportunity. Shivani Gopal, entrepreneur and founder of The Remarkable Woman, and out of Melbourne, Dr. Louise Mahler. Thank you so much, both of you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
We'll take a short break. On the other side of it, though, for the renovating queen herself, Cherie Barber, joining us to discuss the secrets behind her success. Details just ahead.
Sydney and our business is growing. Our business is a family business. It gives that personal touch, and that makes not just me feel good, but I think it makes our clientele feel good. We need a partner that understands our business model, our financial needs. Bankwest is with us day in, day out.